What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Thee CrazyFaceUno Podcast. I'm your host, Shane McNeely. Just a reminder, CrazyFaceUno is inspiring others to do good, make a difference in our local and global community. And I'm excited to welcome my guest today. He's a special guy, AJ Kueppers. Welcome,
Hey
AJ.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. I'm super pumped to have you on. Just a heads up for everybody and a little information. How we met was we met via Craigslist when I was looking for a housemate in St. Paul.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's kind of a cool story. Dana, she was moved in towards the end of our time all living together, and we were talking about how you're one of the best roommates I maybe have ever had, and you're just a good guy. So.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
No, that was a great time that we spent together. It was a good house, you know.
Yeah.
It was a really good place. I had just come out of college, and I couldn't think of a better place to kind of start the beginning of my professional life, my post-college years. It was a good time. Yeah,
Absolutely.
we worked out well together as roommates.
Yeah, we did. Like enough alike, enough things that we like got along well, and then but like enough differences that we didn't like get in each other's way.
Yeah, no, 100%. It was great.
Yeah, it was awesome. Which that kind of leads me into a little bit more about you, AJ, and you came out of college. What was your degree again?
Accounting, straight up accounting.
Straight up accounting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember when you had first moved in, you were just head down, like grinding on getting your CPA, is it certification or?
Yep, it's a license.
License, yeah.
So, I mean, it's basically the accountant's equivalent of getting a master's degree. And,
Right.
that was a tough first year.
Yeah.
Just between, working full-time and then coming home and studying probably about 3 hours a night.
Yeah.
And then more on the weekends. It was a slog. I'm glad it's done. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah. I admire your dedication because you were so determined and dedicated. You spent, like you said, sometimes 3 hours. You spent so much time just coming home after you worked a full day, and you put your nose to the grindstone and just got to work. And I really admire that. It's an admirable trait, and it's clearly paid off for you.
Thanks. Yeah, it was, had that youthful energy,
Yeah.
It's funny how even just it's not even been 5 years since that happened. I'm like, oh man, I had so much more energy. I don't know if I can do that again.
I'm telling you, I've been talking to some friends as well. I've got a couple friends that are going back to school, and one of my good buddies who's in the wedding, Joel, he's actually working on getting his doctorate. So he's just started classes this last week, and he's like, dude, I haven't been to school in 8 years. He was like, the first hour I was good, and then I got to hour 2, and I was just like, whoa, my brain was in another world. It was really hard to focus, and it's just a different mindset. You kind of forget what it's like to be in college and to study and be a student sometimes. And
yeah, I miss it though too. I don't know. Do you ever miss college?
There's parts of it I miss. The thing that I miss the camaraderie and the people and the conversations, which maybe the CrazyFaceUno podcast is filling in a little gap there, if you will.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, kind of get the best parts of that college experience.
Yeah, and
big and
absolutely. And I like, as I've gotten older, I've learned that I just really like to learn. I enjoy learning new things. I enjoy, but it's things that I want to learn, which is different, I think. And I wish I had some of that mentality back in the day, of that eagerness to learn and eagerness to grow, and kind of, I guess maybe it's a renewed sense of purpose in my life as well, in recent months. So
yeah, no, for sure.
AJ, accounting, what was your, when you selected that major, what was your end goal? Was it to become a CPA, get your license as a CPA?
So it was, this is a story that, being an accountant, people often ask, like, how did you become an accountant, right? Because it's kind of the unsexiest job description out there, right?
Sure.
Like, my freshman year, there's a funny story. I don't know, have you ever seen the movie The Producers, the newer version with like Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick? Have you seen that show?
I don't know. I don't think I have.
So it's a musical, and for whatever reason, my friends all made me watch it like 3 different times. Like 3 different friend groups made me watch it during the course of my freshman year. And the reason why it's so funny is because one of the characters, Matthew Broderick's character, sings a song called Unhappy because he's an accountant and he's unhappy and he wants to be a Broadway producer instead. So, I just felt like I was getting smacked over the head with like, why are you like, I came in freshman year of college declared as an accounting major. So I like from day one, I was going to be an accountant, and they were like, all my friends were like, this is going to be you someday.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to like it. I promise. But anyways, so funny story aside, I graduated high school in 2010. So this is like, deep into the recession, right? 2008 had happened. Yep. 2009 had happened. So initially what had happened was I was sure that I was just going to become a lawyer. A little background, on my dad's side, my dad's a lawyer, and my my grandfather's a lawyer. My great grandfather was a lawyer. So there's probably something in the DNA that says that you should become a lawyer. Like it's probably in your blood that this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
And I told my dad that, my senior year of high school, like, I'm going to probably just like go for a pre-law major or whatever. And my dad was like, no. He actually counseled me against it. Because at the time, one of the industries that got hit hardest by the recession was the legal industry.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And, it's been a while, so I don't really recall exactly the specifics, but I think that was just one that was maybe ripe for maybe trimming back the fat a little bit.
Right.
Maybe speaking out of turn there, but that was kind of the impression that I got, was that, there had been a lot of growth in that area, and then it was, it kind of needed to be corrected during the recession. So, he said, don't go to law school. He's like, and the thing is, law school is something you do after your undergrad, after you get your 4-year degree. So he said, the one industry that was really not hit by the recession was the accounting industry, because, even if a business is losing money, you still need an accountant to tell you that.
Yeah.
You can't be a business and not know your financials, not know your numbers.
Yeah.
So, he counseled me to to go get an accounting degree. And he's like, you don't have to become an accountant. If the market picks back up and the legal industry is booming again, in 4 years, go to law school.
Right.
Like, that's totally still an option. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself during your undergrad into having to go to law school by getting some sort of pre-law degree.
Good for your dad. That's awesome that, he was able to be there and have that like sage advice,
Yeah, no, I really, I have a lot of respect for my dad. I think I've always felt that he's someone that I can trust and that I can go to for advice, at lots of different stages in my life, not just, trying to figure out what major to get in college, but then helping me out with my career, like just kind of giving me advice and helping me with networking and connections as I was, leaving college. He was able to, he kind of lit the fire under my ass. Like I was kind of enjoying college and I'm a little bit more introverted. So, networking wasn't something that I would necessarily wanted to do, but, he was there to kind of coach me and, push me a little bit and say, no, you have to, go to those mixers, go to those networking events. So it was definitely something where I feel very lucky to have, the dad that I do.
Absolutely.
And then, I think that not only was it an industry that he saw as being kind of recession-proof to a certain extent, but, I was also kind of a numbers geek in high school. Math was usually my favorite subject. So there was also, not only was it a good industry to be in, I think he recognized that it was a good fit for my temperament. It
was one of your strong suits.
Yeah, exactly. Came in declared freshman year as an accounting major. I think there was like one semester where I kind of doubted myself and went through, like, I don't know what comes before a quarter life crisis, like an eighth life crisis.
Yeah.
I don't even know. But there was like one semester where I was like, no, I'm going to be an econ major instead. None of this accounting for me.
Where do you think that came from? What was it? Just like you enjoyed econ, or what was the draw?
You know, yeah, I really enjoyed econ, and it was a little bit more, I don't know what the word is, maybe a little more philosophical, you know, a little bit more high level and kind of thinking about big ideas. And
a little more sexy, if you will.
Yeah, a little bit. Then I got set straight, but yeah, for a little bit I was thinking about doing econ, but I think as someone who's a little more introverted, I think having a more like an accounting degree means that you become an accountant. I think that kind of linear path was a little more appealing to someone who's a little more introverted, so that, you know, the idea of kind of, if you're an econ major, your path's a little less defined. I think that was a little bit intimidating. So I think kind of the
more comfort and safety and
the assuredness of like, you know what you're going to do with an accounting degree. So yeah, that's kind of where I ended up, and I enjoyed kind of the precision of it.
Sure.
What I tell people who don't know much about accounting is that it feels at times like a Sudoku puzzle.
That's a good.
Just like a really complicated Sudoku puzzle, because you know, you've got your numbers, and you know that at the end of the day, everything kind of fits together like a puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Like everything at the end, when you've done it right and everything works, you know it, and all, you know, you know what the rules are, and you know where everything's supposed to go generally. It's just kind of that process of elimination of, okay, well, you can't put it here, you gotta put this number here, which means that number goes over there. And I kind of like that methodical piece to it.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you remember any, you know, of your classes or anything you studied that you really enjoyed or that really sticks out to you?
Oh man, like 5 years ago feels so long, you know?
I know, putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
And if not, no worries. Like it's all good.
I think that what I liked was intermediate, just kind of your standard intermediate accounting, because it kind of built on the basics. Everyone who's a business major has to take introduction to accounting, so you get a lot of people who are like, man, I don't like this, or, you know, they're showing up and they're on their iPad the whole class or whatever. So you kind of take what you can get with that one. And then with intermediate, you're with other accounting majors. You're not really dealing with folks who have to be there in your class. And you're kind of building on the foundation that introduction built. But then you're not in advanced either. You know, advanced accounting was all this weird stuff, like dealing with currency exchanges and how you deal with, you know, the
obscure,
fact that maybe
a little more obscure.
You know, like you got to track on the balance sheet pesos versus USD and like what the different currency exchange rates. That stuff was not my favorite part of the job. And part of the classes, but you know,
sure,
everything. Not everything is going to be your favorite.
Right. Yeah, that's like a fact of life. Like you can't get through life like unscathed. Like you're going to have to come up against something that you don't enjoy, and you have to push through and persevere. And it's just a fact of life, that's for sure. Yeah, which then kind of cues you graduated, you got your accounting degree, and when did you decide to start taking your or studying for the CPA exam?
Yeah. So that was pretty much immediate. I'm going to try not to get too far out in the weeds, because I certainly can.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
To accounting, the requirements for getting the CPA are not just having an accounting degree. There's a little bit more requirements for that.
Yeah.
So some folks actually get a master's degree in accounting in order to meet the requirements for the CPA. Okay. I've managed to hit all the requirements for getting the CPA in my 4 years in undergrad. So at that point, there was really no barrier that some people do have a barrier before they can sit for the CPA after their 4-year degree.
Sure.
I didn't have that. The company that I had started working for had a tuition reimbursement program that applied to the CPA. So it wasn't going to cost me,
yeah, that's
so it
like
wasn't going to cost
ideal.
me anything out of pocket. Yeah. I'd met all the requirements. There was no real out-of-pocket cost for me, so it was more like, why wouldn't you take advantage of that and get that extra certification? At the time I was young, so it was like, time means the only thing I was giving up was my time, right? Which you
Right.
saw. At the time I was like, it's 1 year. I'm 22. Like,
Uh-huh.
that's nothing.
Yeah.
So to me, it was more like, why wouldn't you at this stage in your life?
Yeah.
I didn't have a family. I didn't have kids that, needed to see me. So
Exactly.
I spend all my time working and studying. That's
Yeah,
the time
and
in my life to do it.
and you were like, again, you were so disciplined. I know there were times when you were just like, no, I'm not gonna go and hang out with you, or I'm not gonna go grab a beer with you. I'm gonna stay and study. And Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, like,
Mm-hmm.
you balanced it well, and you found that time for yourself, from what I could see. But you were very determined, and I think that's awesome. For
Yeah.
people out there listening, the CPA exam is one of the more grueling exams. Do you know any of the statistics of its pass fail rates? I know that's it's pretty tough.
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure. I think it's about 50-50.
Yeah.
On the pass fail rate. There's a lot of other exams out there that are also very tough. So I'm not gonna come out here and say the CPA is the hardest thing
Yeah.
that you can take.
But it's up there.
But it's certainly not a walk in the park.
Yeah,
either.
it's got its challenges, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'm just glad I did it while I was fresh out of college, and still kind of had that standardized test mentality.
Right. Yeah, very helpful for sure.
Yeah.
And so the whole time you're studying for this exam, you were working for an insurance company,
Yes.
Travelers Insurance, and
Yep. That's
and they were, what was your position there?
Yeah. So I was in a rotational program there. So it was for any kind of accounting, finance role that was kind of entry level. What you would do is in your first 3 years, you would have 3 different positions within the company. The idea would be get to know different people within the finance accounting community at the company. A large company like that, there's a lot of finance accounting folks. So
Yeah.
just kind of start making connections and to get to see different pieces of what does it mean to work in corporate accounting.
Absolutely.
There's the world gets increasingly specific.
Mm-hmm.
You might think that, oh yeah, he's an accountant, that's a pretty specific job. Like, it's not just a general business thing. But then within accounting, there's all these different functions.
Right.
And so, really trying to figure out, okay, within a large company like that, what kind of accounting do you like to do? So the idea is, let's find a good fit, both culturally, like what team do you work well with,
Mm-hmm.
and also the work. What kind of work, what are your strengths within accounting?
Yeah.
And what are you drawn to? So I really appreciated that opportunity,
Yeah.
It's a whole lot of work for a company to,
Move
give
you
you
around.
3 jobs in 1 year. Yeah, to move you around. There's a lot of infrastructure that
Train.
they have to have.
Yeah.
They have to keep these positions. The managers have to be okay with, literally you're getting a new person every year that you have to retrain on the same job. So
Right.
there's a lot of investment that happens on their end that
Yeah.
I really appreciated, and it's really good. I listen to a fair amount of business podcasts, and I think one sentiment that gets echoed a lot that I would highly agree with is that I think starting in a big corporate environment is actually a pretty good way to start, because you get to kind of see what the best practices are. Their business processes are pretty locked down.
Yeah.
And it's a good way to really see how does corporate America work? What is the language of business? What is the 8 to 5 life like? So it was a good kind of way to learn, not in a college setting, but actually learn in the business world.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the business podcasts you listen to?
So what I've really enjoyed more recently are the I don't know if you can hear him, but the cat has jumped up on the bed.
What's your cat's name?
It is my girlfriend's cat, but we share ownership now. His name is Mittens.
Mittens. Well,
Yeah.
Chancey Poo's here. He's hanging out with us too. He's just snoozing like he likes to do. So, welcome, Mittens and
Yes.
Chancey Poo. There, we've got four for bodies in the podcasting world
Yes.
now, not just you and me. So that's awesome. Yeah,
Yes.
no worries. What were you saying? The business podcast?
Oh yes, the podcast. So currently I'm working in the startup world. So that tends to, in the tech scene, in the tech startup world, there tends to be a good number of podcasts to listen to. I really enjoyed Masters of Scale, which is hosted by the founder of LinkedIn, named Reid Hoffman. So
Yeah.
Masters of Scale by Reid Hoffman, I've really enjoyed. It's really geared towards entrepreneurs. So to all you entrepreneurs out there, he does, I think, really good advice.
Yeah.
Definitely focused a little bit more on the tech sector, but
Yeah.
I think he gives good advice to anyone who has that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah. That title is very intriguing to me, so I'm gonna have to check that one out.
Yeah, definitely. I'd highly recommend it. And then the other one that I've really enjoyed is called Saster. That one is definitely more focused on the tech world. Specifically kind of business software. So if you've heard of like Salesforce
Yep.
or...
That's what Dana's company uses is Salesforce, and I used to use Salesforce at Invisible Children as well. So, very familiar.
So it's geared towards people who work at companies like a Salesforce, like kind of like a business software.
Nice.
But you kind of get a good sense of people's path. Similar to this podcast, it's a lot of not just kind of how do you do business and what are your secrets to business, but a little bit of how did you get to where you are? And, a good chunk of them say it's as fun and as exciting as it is to kind of work in the tech space.
Yeah.
It is actually a good idea to get your first experience at a large kind of more established company to kind of learn the ropes.
Sure.
As it were.
Yeah. Which kind of leads us into, you touched on it. One of the things I wrote down and that I thought would be really interesting to get your perspective on is going from Travelers Insurance, this big corporate company, and working within there to your current position where you work in a startup, and you've gone from one extreme to the other in some ways. And what's that like? What's that been like? What was your experience?
Yeah. So I think at the end of my rotational program, the conventional way that it's done is that you kind of have to own the more permanent placement, right? So then when you've done your 3 years and they've given you 3 different jobs in the company, then it's like, okay, well, you've kind of hopefully figured out what you like, and you have hopefully made connections. So, it's kind of on you to find what that next step is within the company.
Sure.
And, as much as I had enjoyed my time at Travelers, I wasn't sure that it was the perfect fit. I put 3 years there, and, I have nothing bad to say about my time there, but I wasn't sure that it was the right place for me. And so the way that I kind of viewed that process was, well, if I'm essentially applying for jobs within the company, I am a job applicant, I'm looking for a job.
Yeah.
Why would I limit myself to just one company?
Sure.
Now, the idea is that, yes, they've invested in me and they've put time in me, but, if it's just as hard, if not harder, to find a job within the company, just because it's a well-established company, so they weren't necessarily, opening up new departments or growing with new teams. So, I was finding it challenging to find a position, an opening, just based on kind of where Travelers was as a company. And so I said, why limit myself to trying to find a job at one company?
Smart.
I started applying around to other jobs. If I was going to apply internally, might as well apply externally as well. And what I found was a tech startup here in Minneapolis. That was looking for kind of what actually did seem like a good next step career move. It was a promotion in title, and so that was kind of what I was looking for. And it felt like a good fit. The interview went really well, and I've always been a little bit interested in that tech space. I'd like to consider myself a little bit of a geek. While we were living together, I built a computer for the first time. So,
absolutely.
I've done that kind of thing. I'm a little bit plugged into that world, so it felt like a good fit, and it's been great. They made me an offer. I accepted it in a heartbeat.
I remember you were so excited, and we.
Oh yeah.
Whenever you were offered that position and officially got it, and rightfully so. You should have been. What is your like official title, or what like area of the company do you work? Obviously.
Yeah, so I'm a senior accountant, and that's been a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
When you're working at a large company like Travelers, large insurance company, there's, like I said, kind of hundreds of accountants. And now there's 3 accountants.
Right. But that's like where you're.
There have been 2.
Yeah, that's where your corporate and doing that program that you did at Travelers comes in so handy, because you got to see the different components of like the holistic view of the company and those different branches of accounting, and those different pieces. And I'm sure that that's translated into the startup world, and where you've got your hands in probably a few different cookie jars instead of one specific narrowly focused, niche area.
Yeah, oh heck yeah, that's definitely true. And I think also the piece of it is that when you're in a rotational program, you're learning a whole new job every year, right? So you're still kind of staying in that learning mindset, which I think is super helpful when you're at a small company. And there was a period in time where the position that I was reporting directly to was open, so kind of the head of the department wasn't there, and if issues popped up, like, I had to solve it. I had to figure out I had to learn. I had to just kind of figure out how to solve the problem that had presented itself. So I think definitely staying in that learning mindset was helpful moving to a small company.
Sure. Well, and I can resonate with that, like that hits home with me, just with everything I'm building with CrazyFaceUno and working on. It's the same thing, like I don't, there's a lot of things that I'm doing that I have no idea what I'm doing, to be completely honest, but thank goodness for Google, and and legitimately staying in that learner's mindset where I'm like, okay, like this can be a roadblock, or it can be a chance for me to learn and grow and to, build my skills. And it's been an interesting like road so far, and there's lots more. I've got a whole to-do list written out that is a bunch of research. There's like 3 or 4 different things that I just need to learn. I need to learn about this specific piece, this specific industry, or this specific component to what I want to do. And it's immersing myself in different books and different podcasts, like you were talking about with the business podcast. Like that's awesome. I've been talking with several people about just the different avenues that they, or the different the different things that they're doing to help themselves learn and grow, and it's been good. It's been fun, and it sounds similar in some ways, where you're like, yep, I got to just figure this out.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of interesting especially when it's a smaller group, when it's, I'm assuming it's just you with CrazyFaceUno at this point, and
pretty much.
When it's a small team too, there is kind of this, well, I get to make a decision, and we're gonna figure it out. There's not necessarily an approval chain. You can just kind of do what needs to get done, and not worry about getting sign off from a bunch of people. And that's kind of that's kind of enjoyable too.
Yeah, and calling the shots is fun. It is fun, and something I've been desiring for a while is to have creative control. I've desired that and wanted that, I guess, and I've definitely got that with CrazyFaceUno, and sometimes it's more than I really want. I would love to have a small team behind me. So if you're out there and you're interested in being a part and want to volunteer some time, like I said, volunteer some time out there if you're listening, let me know. Shoot me a message. There's different avenues to reach me, whether it's my phone number that's available or my email. But there's definitely some things that I would love to have some collaboration with, and people to help, and people to jump in and take the reins on certain aspects of what's going on. But at the end of the day, you got to trust the process and just keep going and do what you think is best, and learn as much as you can and make the best decisions you can at the time.
Heck yeah. Yeah.
So let's do this. What are 3 things you love about your job?
Yeah, I was actually just talking about this the other day with the head of my team because they're just kind of checking in, and I think one thing that you just talked about actually that resonated with me really strongly was the creative control. I kind of called it autonomy. I really feel like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm not micromanaged at my job, which is great. I'm given.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that I'm given clear direction. Like this is what needs to get done.
Yeah.
Accounting tends to be fairly black and white, so
Yeah.
there's pretty clearly like this is what needs to get done. But then within that, I can kind of say, okay, yes, that needs to get done. Where does that fit on the priority list of, this is all the things that need to get done this week. What order does it get done in? How do I do it? The particulars, I feel like I'm not very micromanaged, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
I'm told what to do, but how it gets done is left to me, which I really like.
Mm-hmm.
Very similar vein. I think the second thing that I like is the flexibility.
Yeah.
Working at a tech startup, we're completely paperless. I mean, so
Yeah.
if you need to work from home for a certain, if you have an appointment during the middle of the day or whatever, my company is really flexible to allowing you to work from home
Yeah.
or do whatever you need to do to make sure, obviously
Get your job
we
done.
need to move
But
fast and get
yeah.
your job done. But within that, there's a lot of trust and respect.
Yeah.
When it's a small company, everyone's name. We're still under 150 people
Yeah.
at this point when it's employees, and the conventional wisdom out there is that usually 150 employees is the tipping point. When it's
Yeah.
150 people, you can still kind of know everyone's name and know what they do, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
if someone reaches out to me with a marketing question, I know who to send them to on the marketing team, kind of
Right.
a thing.
Right. It's more
Which is
personable.
yeah, exactly. So I really like that flexibility.
And I think that trust is so important, I mean,
Yeah,
having even in the bigger companies, I think you lose a little bit of that, and I don't know why. I don't know if I really understand why, because I think that, the micromanaging thing is just it can be an issue, and a lot of people have frustrations with that. And when people can give, people like yourself can have that autonomy to, yes, I know you've given me the framework in which you want me to operate, and the goal in which you want me to accomplish. Let me do it. I literally overheard a gentleman the other day when I was at lunch, speaking to one of the exact same things of like, well, I just like, what's it matter how I do it? Like, as long as I get it done, like, I don't want to be, he was literally saying the exact same thing that we're saying of somebody that was micromanaging him and wanted him to do something a specific way. But he was saying like, I'm going to do it my way, like I can get the job done, but I want to do it the way I want to do it. And it's the importance is that I get it done. I complete the task, or I complete the thing. And I think there's some importance, and I think there's some real value in companies and people and places that understand that and practice that self-control in some ways. It's easy to want to micromanage and to want to keep your hand on things, I think. And it takes some real discipline to do some of those things, and to have that trust, and to know that you've built that relationship, and you've trained and given the person the knowledge that they need to do the best and do what you want them to do.
yeah, exactly. I actually have a theory about this. I received some really good advice when I was at Travelers, just kind of about a future career in managing. When that transition from being an individual contributor to a manager, and I think my theory is that with a lot of input from other people, of course, the people who get promoted into manager positions are usually competent, right? They're usually good at what they do. They're driven. So they've got a certain level of skills. And I think there's a challenge in moving from being an individual contributor to a manager where the advice that I was given is that you need to be able to accept that when you ask someone to do a task for you, they're going to do it about 80% as good as you think it should get done, or as you think you would do it. And you have to be accepting of that. Like, you can't expect perfection of your employees all the time. And what the 80% thing is that, perfectionism is bad in business, right? Like if you are looking for perfection, it'll take too long to get there. And so you have to be willing to accept that it might not be exactly how you would do it. It might be a little bit rough around the edges, but if it's 80% of the way there, that's still really good, especially because this person is probably less experienced than you. So I think you need to have a certain level of acceptance that as a manager, I think there needs to be a certain level of acceptance that it might not be the way exactly you would do it, or it might not be as good as you could do it, but the time savings is there. You can't do everything as a manager. That's why you've got a team. So that's my personal theory. It hasn't been tested just yet because I'm not managing people yet.
Yeah.
That's kind of the advice that I've received, as a forward-looking career.
Yeah. Well, and Dana and I have talked about this too, because she's in a manager position now, and she's been managing people for a while anyway, and she does a lot of call coaching, and so we were talking about this last night. She was telling me, it's giving people the autonomy to make the calls, but then there's still just a little bit of a checkup, and they coach you through it. Hey, let's listen to this call. Here are the things I love about this. What are the things you love about it? And where are the things that we could adjust and fix, and how do we do that, and how do we go from here? And it's not picking apart every phone call, but it's like, hey, let's look at this. Let's become better. And I think that even as, it's that 80%, at least for myself, and I'm sure that you're very similar, and I think a lot of people are, that I'm going to critique myself. You're not going to be any harder on me than I'm going to be on myself. I can promise you that. So if I know that I didn't quite hit that 100% and that perfectionist mark, I'm going to try to improve that next time, and I think that that's important to understand and to know. And maybe that's just an understanding your employee and understanding the people that you're working with, or the people that, you're managing or whatever, and understanding their personalities and their drive in some ways. I think that a lot of people, I don't think that most people want to, I can't say everybody, I don't think most people want to just be mediocre. I think obviously there's a group of people in the world that are okay with that, but I think that people want to succeed and excel. And when you give people that when you empower people, I think that you see them hit their stride, and they want to work for you, and they want to do the best that they can. And I think that that's important.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
Well, let's move on from your jobs. You are a very interesting, unique individual. You've got so many. Here's the thing I love about you, AJ, is that I would classify you as a pretty type A person. You're introverted. You brought that up, but you are not afraid to jump in and to go for it, and I love that. The whole time that we lived together, I was always impressed and surprised at the things that you would be like, yeah, I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to go do that, and you just put yourself in situations to grow and to learn, and even those like social situations, and I know that music is a big thing for you. You love music. You love singing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you still doing some of that? Are you still involved in some of those different, like the choir and some of those different groups that you were involved in?
Yeah, so I've actually been a little less involved in music recently, just because the stage of life that I'm in.
Yeah.
But yeah, historically I was in choirs in high school, musicals in high school. I was in a college a cappella group before the movie Pitch Perfect. So I was doing it before. I was doing it before Anna Kendrick made it cool.
Yeah, your gal.
Yeah. And so, that's one thing where it gets a little bit harder to do after college. I was a little bit involved with a church group that I was making music with, but that worked out really well when I was living in St. Paul with you.
Yeah.
I'm living in a different suburb now, so it's,
Yeah.
a little bit harder to get
Sure.
over there as often. So,
Yeah. Don't cross the
just
river.
different stages. Yeah, it's a real barrier,
It's a
man.
real thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Now that I'm on the other side of the river, I rarely make it over to St. Paul.
yeah. Isn't that crazy?
But
And I
yeah,
was
no,
the same way.
it's
I used to live in Minneapolis and I didn't really cross over there too much. It's like friends and people are what draw you to where you're going. And,
yeah,
it's like,
yeah, exactly.
but,
Yeah, and I've got some old friends over in St. Paul, so I'll make it over there every so often.
right,
But,
right.
yeah.
So
So
less
yeah, different
music.
stages of life. Less music.
eh,
Still doing comedy and improv. That's
Right.
been a blast.
Yeah, which
Um,
is awesome. I've been able to see you once. I wasn't able to
mhm.
get over there before we moved, but yeah, you are involved in comedy and you've been really submersing yourself into that world a little bit, haven't you?
Yeah, to an extent. I did a little bit of stand up, just to like try it out and dabble. One of my comedy friends, I think, put it really well, which is that comedy improv is a team sport, and stand up is like a solo sport, right?
Okay.
So, and when it comes to hobbies, I want to do it. Not necessarily. I'm not looking to make a career out of comedy at this
Yeah.
point in my life.
Yeah.
So I'd rather do it with people.
Yeah.
I'd rather do that team sport and kind of have that social bonding experience.
Yeah. So you're saying you like the improv more than the stand up.
Yeah, I think that's typically where I've found the most enjoyment. And I think there's also maybe a little bit of a cop out piece to it too, which is that with stand up you've written and you've practiced and you've thought about it, and so if
Sure.
you bomb, like it's
Yeah.
kind of on you,
Woo.
and there's not a whole lot of sympathy there.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're doing improv and you tell a joke and people don't laugh,
You get to
there's
share
kind of
it.
a little less pressure. It's like, well, I literally just made this up, so I
Yeah.
tried.
You get a share in the failure
Yeah,
as well. Yeah.
yeah.
So you do how many times did you do stand up?
I did it. I did it twice. So
Twice.
the improv house that I do comedy improv with, Stevie Ray's, which is in Chanhassen, suburb of Minneapolis.
Yeah.
They do improv, and then they also do introduction to stand-up comedy class. So that was really nice to kind of, keep that kind of group mentality. I had
Mhm.
classmates, and we were practicing for each other and giving each other feedback in a very supportive environment. So that was a really great way to just kind of dip my feet in a little bit. And then
Yeah.
there's obviously kind of that like student showcase at the end of the stand-up class, which was great, and that was a really fun way to perform for a very supportive audience. You pack it with friends and family who are there to see you succeed. So a little bit of maybe a little bit of training wheels, you might say.
Sure. Sure.
And then I did an open mic or two around town, but it just it didn't speak to me in quite the same way.
Yeah.
And so I've just personally decided that I think I want to focus a little bit more on improv comedy and hone my craft there.
Yeah. That's cool. With the stand up, what did you like? How long were your bits, or how long were your sets?
Yeah, so I had one 5-minute story that I developed.
Gotcha.
And it is funny, I still have a note on my phone that I just call like stand-up joke premises.
Yeah.
So if I'm ever at a comedy club on an open mic night and I've got just enough, if I had just the right amount to drink, not too much, not too little.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I've always kind of got that idea in the back of my head, like, maybe I'll dust off some of these
Yeah. Test them out.
joke ideas.
Give them a ride. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I don't want to say no. I don't want to say I'll never do it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so whenever I think of something that I think is funny, I'll tend to write it down. And
That's
just
cool. What is that? I
got
mean,
the
you
notes.
kind of touched on it there, but like, what's that process look like for you, or what has it? You had the story, so you just developed it and wrote it out. Do you write it out incomplete, or do you just have like, do you hit the high points and then you kind of ad lib as you go, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so when I was actually taking the stand-up class and really developing my 5 minutes, I had kind of already started that note that I was talking about, and so the first class is just kind of figuring out, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to do a couple of short bits that I can kind of pack together, or do I want to tell one long story? And when I was kind of just throwing out my different pitches and different ideas out there, one story kind of seemed to resonate the most with the others. And it was a true story that actually happened to me back when I was living with you in St. Paul. I don't know if I told you this story, but I used to go on Saturday morning runs every so often.
Sure.
And one day I was deciding to run around Lake Como, and it was actually a Sunday morning, and I looked around and I was like, there's a lot more people out on a Sunday than usual. And I noticed that the racing bib's on. And I was like, I guess I'm in a 5K. And
I think I did hear this story.
I just ended up in a 5K. And the best part was that then I realized, it's Mother's Day. This is a Mother's Day 5K. So it's a bunch of like moms and a bunch of families, all running, they've all trained together. And there are all these like, perfect fit families who are running a 5K together. And I'm just like here by myself running around the lake.
That's so funny.
So then, obviously with stand-up, then you kind of take that basic structure, and then you find out what the beats are, what are kind of the things inherent to the story that are funny, and then from there you kind of
work your timing,
and you obviously embellish a little bit.
Sure.
I may have fabricated the ending to get a stronger, kind of finish.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what you accept with stand-up, is that you're probably getting about somewhere less than 100% of it is factually accurate.
Right. But that's fun. Who cares? It's fun. Yeah. That's like part of comedy. So
exactly. And so I'm every comic's a little bit different in how they develop their material. I wrote out word for word what I was gonna say, and I even I would tweak certain words. I would tweak certain phrasings.
Yeah.
I would record myself just in my bedroom. I would record myself on my phone. I would listen to it back. I would make sure I wasn't rushing. I'd make sure I was staying in time. So there really was a lot of, solo practice of just recording myself in my bedroom and then listening to myself.
Yeah.
Which, that's the less fun part of stand-up. That's where it is like a serious career, and it is a craft that you're honing.
Right, and I mean it gives you a lot of respect for the professional comedians that are up there, like and the ones that turn over year after year new, completely new sets. I listen to the Joe Rogan podcast a lot, and he talks about that. He's like, the first time I ever did that, it was like I did my special, and it's like then I'm done with that. And once I've done my special, it's like I'm clean slate. And he's like, you talk about intimidating, it's like you like sit and you've got a blank sheet of paper essentially in front of you for the next year. And like, I can't imagine. That sounds intense, definitely a skill, something that you've got to be disciplined in. Take the time to develop your craft. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, another thing that you have to respect too with these professional stand-up comedians is that as they're developing the material, and if they're doing open mic nights or if they're doing like workout rooms or whatever to test out their new material, by the time they're recording their special, they have told that joke hundreds, if not thousands of times.
Right.
They have to make it sound like it's the first time they're telling the story.
True.
They have to make it seem like it's brand new and it's still just as funny to them as the day that they thought of it, because if they're just blandly reciting this material like, this is that joke that I've done before, like, then the audience isn't going to enjoy it either. So you have to approach it like it's your first time every time. Yeah.
Do you think music's like that too, with like musicians that are singing? Like, I personally think that part of what makes a song great or excellent is the passion behind it and that emotion that you can feel that a musician can evoke from their their lyrics or their words or their music. And I can see it maybe a similarity there too, of that, like, if you're singing it day after day after day after day, you lose a little of that passion, a little of that, you had that potential to be able to bring that same commitment, that same drive to each performance. It has to be difficult.
Yeah. I'd actually push back on that idea. I think
Yeah.
that music and comedy can be very different in how they age. And for this reason, I would say, I think that if you're doing a stand-up bit,
Yeah.
I'm going to say this admittedly as an amateur in both comedy and music. I wouldn't
Of
consider
course.
myself necessarily
Yeah,
a
that's fine.
seasoned professional in either. Um, but with comedy works in specifics, right? So when you're telling a story, if you say I went to the store, you know, or you say I went to Walmart, like even just adding which store you went to already, then you're kind
Mm.
of that even just there, that specifics, it starts to bring in a little bit more comedy.
Yeah.
You can put yourself as an audience member. You can visualize it. You know
Right.
exactly where you are, and that's part of the comedy. Is just like, okay, this isn't like Target. This is Walmart. This is
Yeah.
different, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I think when you're telling a comedy bit at the same time over and over, you're living in the specifics. You're reliving that same moment over and over again.
Right. You're trying
Whereas
to
I
put
think,
somebody in a specific like headspace to understand and to see what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas I think with music, right, I would think that music tends to be a little more ambiguous, a little bit more about the feeling that you're trying to create.
Yeah.
And so I think that with music, it can age like a fine wine almost.
Yeah.
As you grow and as you change, you can almost bring in shades of new meaning to a song. You can
Sure.
sing the words a little bit differently, and you can discover new meaning. You can discover new emotions within one song. So I think that I would say probably that music, if it's a really good song, you can live with that song and you can grow with that song and you can bring new things to that song over time, even though it's the same lyrics and it's the same chords,
That's a good
in
point.
a way that might be difficult with stand up with a specific story.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good point.
Yeah, like with a love song can be about a very specific person, right? When you write
Yeah.
it, but then, you
Can
know, let's say you break up with that person,
sure.
that song then becomes different. Let's say you meet someone new, then does that song still apply? Is that song a memory of someone else?
Right.
Does it apply to that new person? Do your feelings about love itself change?
Yeah.
These are very big ideas that can go into the best songs. The best songs make you think, and the best songs I think can grow and change with
Yeah, that's actually got my brain going itself. Yeah, that's a really good point. I've never actually thought of it through that lens or like thought of it in that way at all. Of how a song could change with your viewpoint or like your own life experience, especially like a love song like you just mentioned. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you love about the improv? What are like three things? I know you mentioned a couple things, just
Yeah.
the freedom to share in some of the glory and share in some of the downsides of those as well. But what are the things you love about that?
Yeah. So I think that I'm going to just directly start off by directly contrasting it with stand up, right? Which is that,
Sure.
you know, uh, like I was saying with those seasoned comedy professionals, right? They're telling the same joke every time as if it was the first time. Whereas with improv, it really is the first time. So as funny as it is for the audience, it's just as funny for you because you've discovered it at the same moment that they've discovered it.
Yeah.
So you truly are sharing in that funny moment together, in that laugh together. Obviously as the professional, you're not really supposed to break and start just laughing in the moment, but you have that same joy that the audience has in the same moment. So that creation and consumption are happening simultaneously between the audience and the performer. So that connection is really great. And improv, part of that is, right, you're taking suggestions from the audience. So there's, and a lot of really good stand-ups will incorporate a little bit of improv. They'll talk to the audience, they'll get feedback from the audience, they'll ask the audience questions.
Yeah.
And that's baked right into, you don't have to do that as a stand-up, but that's baked into improv, is that
Yeah.
you're working with the audience to create together, and they kind of give you a jumping off point. They might give you something that you wouldn't start with,
Sure.
I probably wouldn't write a joke about NASCAR, but if someone wants me to do a scene about NASCAR, well, guess what? They're gonna learn some things about NASCAR that are probably not true, but are really funny.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's a good point.
Uh, So there's that part of it too, and then I think more broadly, what I've found personally with improv comedy is that you really learn to trust yourself, right? There are like some quote rules to improv comedy that you learn when you go through improvisation classes, and every place where you teach might have a slightly different set of rules or emphasize them differently. But the number one foundational principle where I learned improv comedy is trust yourself and trust your partner, right? When you're on stage and when you're making things up, when you're improvising, you don't really get a chance to workshop it or to, come up with 3 different ideas and then pick the one that works. You just have to trust that the first thing that comes to your head is what's right and it's what's going to work. So it really helped build my confidence in kind of, as an introvert. It helped me build, as I kind of talked about earlier, the networking, the small talk, these things that are kind of, it can be important in your personal and in your career life outside of the comedy hobby. And
so, I can see that confidence, that confidence boost of learning to trust what's coming out of your mouth, learning to trust yourself and trust that that you've got the skills and you've got the ability to do what you're doing. That's a good
and trusting your
lesson.
Gut, that gut instinct is good. And it's one thing to hear and like know that you're like, it's to intellectually know that your gut instincts can be right and are right. It's another thing to like actually be on stage and testing your gut instinct and seeing it pay off, that first idea can be the right idea, that you don't need to second guess it. Right.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then, there's just the opportunity to laugh, obviously. You're with other people who, a lot of times they're funnier than you. So I love just being around funny, positive people.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's a camaraderie that when you're hanging out together, some of that comedy kind of spills over too, which is fun. And just even not even be on stage, but just to have fun and laugh and be goofy and unwind, especially, working a job like you've got where you're not corporate, but, you're looking at numbers, your head down, you're staring at a computer probably most of the day. And so it's good to cut loose and to find a different avenue of like relaxation in a sense.
Yeah, you got to exercise both sides of the brain, right?
Absolutely. Which kind of leads me to, I know your family has been involved in pageantry a lot.
Yeah.
Throughout the years.
I was listening to, I didn't finish it just yet, but I was listening to the most recent episode that you posted. So
with Monica.
It looks like you're hitting the pageant circuit.
Yeah, she was a gal I've worked with. She's doing a lot of really good stuff in the world and the community in South Minneapolis and the suburbs there. And so I just really wanted to highlight some of the cool stuff she's doing, and she's getting after it, and she's got some goals and ambitions, and just kind of shining a light on her and the life that she's living. So
yeah, that's great. So as you kind of alluded to, my sister just got crowned Miss Minnesota.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. And my mom was a former Miss Minnesota, so this makes, as far as we're aware, and the paper has reported this, which I'm assuming they fact checked. This is
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, right? I trust the Star Tribune.
Yeah.
Support your local paper, everyone. My mom and my sister are the first mother-daughter Miss Minnesota.
Wow.
It's happened a couple of times in other states, so they're not the first in the country to do it.
But,
at least in Minnesota, they are the first mother-daughter Miss Minnesota pair.
That's awesome. And your sister's she's been working at that for a while.
She started as a teen, so it started doing the teen program, and then competed a couple of times in the standard version. I don't know if you call it like the adults version. I'm not sure what the lingo is exactly.
Sure.
But the kind of the one that you think of, right? So she'll be competing in Miss America in December here.
That's so cool. Where's that at?
It'll be on NBC. It's going to be in Connecticut this year.
Nice.
I'm not sure if you're plugged into this, but actually there's been a lot of changes with the Miss America organization. They got rid of they debuted what they're calling the Miss America 2.0.
Okay.
They've eliminated the swimsuit portion.
Right.
They've replaced it with an interview portion.
Yeah.
so they're trying to make it, or they're reframing it, is my understanding, as more of like almost a job interview than like than a fitness competition or a looks competition. So,
yeah. How do you feel about that? How does your family or your mom and your sister, are they like pro that move, or?
Yeah, we've all really liked it. It's been really cool to see. I think I've only seen one pageant in the new setting, and so far I've really liked it. It's been kind of a breath of fresh air to see, and so it'll be on the Miss America is going to be in Connecticut this year, and it used to be on ABC, and now it'll be on NBC. So
NBC,
be
awesome.
sure to, and then I want to say don't quote me on this. I didn't prep. I want to say it's December 21st of this year. So
December.
It's a little ways out. So December.
Yeah, cool.
Right before Christmas.
That's really fun. What was that experience like for you? I know you've talked to me about it, or we've talked about it. Just kind of being, as a young kid, you just kind of were always around these, this world, it's like its own little special niche market, if you will. What was that like for you, like growing up, just experiencing and being around some of the people that, your sister growing up in this, your mom has obviously, she grew up doing this, and is a coach. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, I think my mom has been kind of a mentor to a lot of people over the years, having been a former Miss Minnesota.
Yeah.
I think that it's been really interesting to see. It's almost like, you grow up with it. It's hard to really.
Yeah, you don't even think of it any differently than Yeah,
exactly. They're just growing up, you're just like, there's people in crowns and they do stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting to kind of see the subtle changes over time as, the competition changes a little bit every so often around, how much is the scoring on the talent section worth versus the interview question and all that stuff. So, it's interesting to kind of be plugged into it and see the changes over time. But, it's always just, at times it almost just kind of feels like an extended family. You kind of see them you see them on social media, you see people growing and changing, these people that are very highly accomplished and really good at what they do, and usually really passionate about a specific cause, like you mentioned with your friend as well. It usually develops out of a passion for something, and I think that the Miss America organization is really good at helping to support those passions and deepen those passions, and actually that really ties in really closely with what my sister used as her platform and has developed, is just kind of really showcasing how these pageant systems can really deepen and develop passions, and that this is something that then sticks with these people for life. This isn't something that these people do for the year that they wear the crown. It's something that they continue to advocate for and continue to try to, whether it's, Best Buddies, or whether it's, Children's Miracle Network, or whatever the cause may be. It's not something that they do just for a year. It's something that they continue to advocate for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, which is really cool, and I think that's like, I think that's one of the more beautiful things about the pageantry world is it really is it's almost a platform to promote and to help other causes and to make change in the world. And I know that's maybe a cliche thing, like, if you think of like Miss Congeniality, how they kind of poke fun at some of the, like, peace all over the world or whatever. But I think it is important, and it's showing that every step of the way it's supporting others and building that community and investing into your communities and these different causes, these different things to literally create a better world for us to live in. Yeah,
exactly. And the Miss America organization is going to be turning 100 years old here coming up. So
that's crazy.
It's kind of interesting to see how one of these kind of original kind of platforms has grown and developed over time, right? Because you could see how it's it could be almost considered like a GoFundMe or
sure,
one of those kind of ideas before its time, right? It is a platform, just like anything else.
It's definitely, if you were a social cause out there, getting your name in front of, thinking marketing wise or business perspective, it's like that's definitely a way about to go about that, to put your name out there and to get some recognition for sure.
Yeah.
AJ, one thing I've asked a few people throughout my time doing podcasts has been, what are 3 things that we should know about you? I know we're towards the end of our podcast here, but I think it's a really interesting question, and I would love to hear what you have to say about that, or like 3 things that that you would want other people to know about you.
3 things.
Putting you on the spot, I know. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't prep for this.
I know.
3 things. 1, I'm probably usually tired, but that's okay. You can still talk to me anyways, and I'll probably be friendly, even if I don't look friendly, even if I just look like I rolled out of bed.
Yeah.
I'm always happy to talk, even if I'm looking a little introverted and a little tired. I'm always going to be a friendly face. I would say that I am endlessly curious about just about anything. Doesn't matter what you're talking to me about. If something really, if you're jazzed about something, I'm down to listen to it. And I'm always going to want to learn. And I will never say that I have the last word on anything. So I'm always down to broaden my perspective.
Yeah.
And
something I love about you, AJ. That's a great quality. It really is.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think maybe we'll say this is the 3rd thing. I think one thing that I'm trying to work on personally that's kind of related to that is that, when I was still kind of starting my career, they had this thing called Strengths Quest, right? And I'm trying to remember what the exact word for it was, but one of the strengths was along those lines of, don't rock the boat, kind of, trying to like find what that common ground is between people. If people are having a disagreement, whether it's during a meeting or whether it's during, a comedy rehearsal, whatever, if there's a little bit of like disagreement, I'm like, I don't like this. Let's just find the common ground and stick to it. So I think one thing that, it's a strength of like being able to find that common ground and find what we all agree on. But I think sometimes you need to be able to live in the disagreement, because that's how you push forward, is by kind of, you don't always have to say, oh, we'll just agree to disagree. Sometimes you need to like resolve differences, and sometimes living in that can be a little uncomfortable. And maybe that's something that I need to be working on, is like, hey, how do you don't always have to agree with everything. Yeah.
I think that we all should work on that. I agree with both sides of that, of, finding the common ground. But I have also said for a while that I think that it's important to have the extremes, because they push the conversation, but the real work happens in the middle. And I think that I think that speaks to what you were saying, really, and I agree with you, and I think that that's important. There's times, it's knowing when, it's discerning those moments of when to stand strong and stand up against something, and also knowing when to go with the flow, or just to have that conversation and meet in the middle and find those commonalities. But there's a time and a place for both of those. So awesome. AJ, thank you so much for being on the CrazyFaceUno podcast. Is there anything you'd want to tell the listeners before we close things out?
No, I mean, I think if you're in the Twin Cities area, obviously I do comedy a little bit around town. Stevie Ray's is where I do comedy. So look them up on the internet, wherever you choose to, whether that's Facebook or the internet. In general, just a Google search to Stevie Ray's comedy would probably put you in the right direction, and have a fun night out and laugh sometime.
Yeah, AJ, the senior accountant and comedian. I love it.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. That's awesome.
Put that on my tombstone.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that in the title. So.
Great, sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you so much, AJ. Again, I appreciate you coming on and taking your time to be a part of the CrazyFaceUno podcast. And just a reminder for all of you out there, we're doing good. We're making a difference, and find that peace for you, and find your way to give back and to contribute to the world around you and to your community. Appreciate you guys. Again, thanks, AJ.
Yes, thank you.
Everybody, I love y'all. Appreciate all of you out there, and thank you for listening. Check out crazyfaceuno.com. Check out our store, and like our posts, like the podcast, and subscribe. Appreciate ya. Love ya. Peace.